Okay, so I'm Megan Marks, and then this is my grandfather. And what is your name?
My name is Abdul Al Sadi.
Okay, and what do you go by here?
I go by Amir.
Because it's easier to pronounce, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And where were you born?
I was born in Bakuba, Iraq in 1935.
All right, and how was it like growing up there?
Uh, it was quite nice. We have a fairly large family, and my family it was rather well known in our hometown. My uh, dad was a landlord. In a way, he owned several orchards, which were the major source of our living.
What kind of orchards?
There were several different actually kinds of orchards. Primarily, there were citrus orchards,
Mm-hmm.
and the citrus orchards normally are covered with date palm trees, and so the dates that or the date palms that cover the citrus plants also produce quite a bit of, or provided quite a bit of income.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. Were the orchards large? Like, did you get to go and pick the fruit?
Of fairly large. Also, there we had a vineyard, but the vineyard only produced grapes. There were eaten grapes, and the vineyard was surrounded by a belt of fig trees, because the fig trees are relatively resistant to uh, hard and warm winds, so it protected the vines from being directly impacted by the sort of warm or even hot winds.
So, was it really windy just throughout?
Not always, but every so often you get sort of winds, and the fig trees are, the leaves of the figs are very leathery and very protective. They prevented the direct impact of the hot winds on the vineyard.
Okay.
And the vineyard was actually sort of interesting the way it was implanted, because in Iraq it doesn't rain, especially in the summertime. There's no rain. Actually, the rainy season is very limited, and is from possibly late October to about the end of April. And it doesn't rain all the time, but it rains between now and then, and there is no rain after that. So the vineyard is irrigated, and there were like very deep canals in the that transect the whole orchard, and on the sides of these rather narrow canals, they you could call them troughs if you want to, but they really are like about maybe 6 feet deep and about maybe 4, 5, 6 feet wide, and we plant the vine along the side, each side of these troughs.
Okay, and the water would go to them and they would grow.
we get the water. We pump the water from at least in that orchard. We have a pumping machine
Mm-hmm.
that pumps the water out of a river, is a fairly large tributary of the Tigris. It's called the River Diyala.
Okay. I'll have to look that on a map. Jidou, the phone, I feel the interference, so can you move it away a little bit more?
Move.
I don't know if there's a phone or some other piece of technology.
There's no phone. Maybe I should move the computer sideways. Does it make a difference now?
If you speak.
I'm speaking now.
That sounds a little better. Although I know that the video will be cut off, so if you can like move the, I don't know how you move the computer, but I could see more of your face was higher in the screen, just a little bit.
Now, do you want me to lower it?
Yeah. If you lower the computer, then you can. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Okay, and when you were growing up there, so when did you start school like normally, or when, and how was your schooling like?
I started school when I was 5 years old, and my dad, we did not have, in a sense, a formal kindergarten. My dad requested from the superintendents of schools to just let me go to school, although I was 5 years old, and say just consider him like he's in kindergarten. But they sort of actually forced him to go and request to have be admitted by changing my age from 5 to 6.
Oh.
And my dad said, well, if that's what it takes, then we will do it. And that is why when I gave you my true birth date is in 35, my American passport and my American naturalization is 1934.
And that carried you through so that you could get
Well,
school.
so when I got into school, I actually did relatively well. In the middle of the year, they thought that I knew a lot more than most of the other students, and not only they accepted me as a full-time student, but and the just about a month or two after the middle of the year, they moved me to second grade, and so I skipped first grade.
Wow. I'll let you drink.
No, that's okay.
And then what was socially acceptable just when you were in schooling? Like, were the girls schooled at all, or was it separated, or?
It was separated at that time. My grade, all through grade school and through the middle school, you have six years of grade school,
Mm-hmm.
and then, well, what we have is a national exam at the end of the each school period, and that is when you go to grade school. You spend 6 years. At the end of the 6 years, every single individual in the country, not only my hometown or everyone takes the same national exam to pass to pass grade school in order to get into intermediate school.
Mm-hmm.
And so almost everyone at the time when we take that exam, we are about 12 years of age, maybe older, and I was only 11 years of age when I took it.
Okay. Because of your age change?
Yeah, because in essence, as far as the school was concerned, I was like the rest of the students who made it uh, without flunking, because there actually a significant percentage of the students do not necessarily finish grade school, which is 6 years, in 6 years, which I did. There were like 30 some students in my class the first year in grade school, and by the time I finished high school, I was the only one who finished high school without having to repeat any of the years.
Wow. Were you the only one to have, well, not just to finish, but to have skipped something getting up to that point?
In addition to skipping, I was the only one who did not fail any of the steps in grade school, which is six grades, and then you got into intermediate school, which is equivalent here to the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then after the 9th grade, you also take a national exam. The whole country takes a national exam. And again, a significant percentage of the people do not pass that exam.
Mm-hmm. Did you do well?
I did very well. I was almost always on the top of my class.
Okay, that's great. Good job. But also, did that, intelligence that you had because of your just your continuous schooling, so how well you did in school, did that ostracize you in the community at all?
No, none whatsoever, because we really, there were two issues. One is we did not have any time to, at least I did not, I spent my extra time working in our orchard when the moment we arrived from school, which was, let's say, at the grade school, we got school from 8 until 12, and we go back to school from 2 until 4. And the same thing with intermediate school and I believe in high school. But in grade school and intermediate school, by the time I get done with school about 4 o'clock, we always went to the orchard to help and spent maybe a couple of hours, and then got back to the house, and I did my homework, and we had dinner, and then I would also begin to I was very much interested in reading anything I could lay my hand
on. Okay. Did you have any favorite authors when you were younger?
Well, no one would know the authors in grade school, because they were primarily the Arabic authors, and some of them actually, one of them got a Nobel Prize in Literature. Let me think if I remember his name. He was Egyptian, and he was blind.
Oh. I can probably find it. Okay.
No,
it's okay. I'll find it and I'll let you know what that is. If you're curious, I'll send you a message. Just moving along. So after 9th grade, then you have college. Well, after 12th grade, right? Because it went up to 12th grade.
Yes.
Then you'd have college. So how was the getting into college for you?
It wasn't that complicated. There were limited a number of schools which I was interested in because of the fact that I was in high after middle school. When you go through the national exam, then you have to decide either to go into science or to go into humanities, art, and literature,
Mm-hmm.
or you could go to sort of a professional kind of training school, and that is you could take business, you could take agriculture, or you are trained or prepared to become a grade school teacher. So instead of going to a typical university, those who choose to go to business and management, after they finish high school, they go into business and management. And they possibly could go to law school also. And those who go to art and literature, they go and study humanities, be it sociology, history, geography, psychology. Psychology may actually be from the science, but even the people with art and literature specialization, they could possibly go to take maybe social kind of psychology and education. They could also go to Boston from there, but they could not. Let's say those individuals who go to the last 3 years of high school, majoring in art and humanities, they will not be able to go to medical school. They will not be able to go to pharmacy. They will not be able to go to engineering, or they will not be able to go into the university that prepare them to become high school teacher. They will only be able to go and study continuation of whatever they have studied in high school. Whereas the people who major in science, they could go to medical school, engineering, pharmacy, as well as if they go to the teaching endeavor, then they will be able to take science. They could take chemistry, biology, all the other scientific endeavors, and they teach physics, math, and so forth. And they could teach high school in these in whatever they were prepared in.
I see. And how exactly did you go about after choosing your path from, science? Then how did you move forward, and where, just
that's very from the very beginning. Actually, I wanted to go to medical school, and I got accepted in medical school. But in the meantime, I have applied to go abroad, and I got accepted to go study petroleum engineering in England.
Oh.
But I was 16 years old at the time when I finished high school, and my mom and dad were very scared that how am I going to be able to live? Who's going to do my cooking? Who's going to wash my clothes? Who's going to do this and that and so forth? And I really and truly, I was prepared to go, and I was very much interested in going, but my parents were very hesitant in letting me go. So by the time we made our decision that I missed going to medical school. They felt my position, and I really went as without being admitted to the university in Baghdad, because I got admitted to go abroad.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad had a very close friend who was the dean of one of the colleges at the university, and went and talked to him, and he told him, this is what happened to my son, and is there any way you could get him in school? And he told him the school has already started, and is it possible to get admitted to the school? So what? How about if he just come and sit in a class? I mean, he wanted the dean to use his own influence in having me attend the school and to see whether I would be able actually to proceed at the speed the students were moving at the time, because I was about 2 months too late.
Mm-hmm.
They finally decided, okay, I mean, there's no harm for me to go and as an auditioner, just to audit the lectures and so forth and so on. In the middle of the year, there is a mid-year exam, and I took the exam with the rest of the students, and there were like about maybe 40 students in our division, was biological and chemical science division. The science college was divided into the mathematical sciences, which were math, and physics. There was a division for astronomy, and there was division for chemistry and biological sciences. And chemistry and biology were lots of people were admitted in both because they were very much interconnected. Although we took lots of courses, I took, like for example, at the time when before I enrolled, when I was as an auditor, I took a course in physics at the college level. I took a course in general chemistry, and I took several courses in biology, cytology, zoology, histology. I don't remember. There were several different biological courses, and I did actually quite well. And we had several professors who were teaching us, who were from foreign countries. Some of them were British, some of them were Polish, some of them were from other European countries. I believe one individual was Austrian.
Oh, wow.
We have Polish, Austrians, and they all taught us in English, and our basic English was not actually quite good, although we studied English language from 5th grade in a grade school all the way through. We knew the grammar, and we even read some very interesting reading texts, like the Barrett of Wimpole Street, the Elizabeth Browning, the famous poet, English poet, the Demon Slayer, Lorna Doone, and several other things that we comprehended those. But the people who taught us English language or English literature and English grammar, they were not native, and we did not actually learn how to pronounce and enunciate very correctly, and we did not communicate very well in the English language as a spoken language, but we were able to really manage to understand the basic grammars, the basic phraseology and the grammatic, writing, and so forth in the English language, but not the spoken language. Spoken language was relatively lacking, and I realized that very well when I came to the United States, that I could understand what people were saying, but I could not respond to them very correctly in the manner I should have, knowing what I knew. I knew most of the basic words. I did not know how to put them together to speak fluently or to speak correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It took maybe about the first year when I was working on my bachelor's degree, which I finished in a year and a half, and then I was able to enroll and get a master's degree, and I did not have that much problem with the English language. I was I've even written a master's degree thesis with whatever English I have been able to muster at that time.
And so, I mean, that's true for any immigrant just coming and learning a new language, I think, in any different place. And that's really interesting that you have that perspective.
Well, there's in addition, of course, to the language. The language was possibly one of the, in a way, very, very significant, because you have to battle your way through.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I skipped the area when I finished high school and went into college. I spent a couple of years there, and I almost I worked throughout every semester during the summertime, and I was almost I have almost fulfilled all the number of points and units and courses to graduate, but not exactly. So I reapplied based on my schooling and based on my grades and the recommendations of the professors at the university. I was able to get a scholarship to come to the United States to get a doctoral degree in biomedical sciences.
Wow.
And so when I came, I went to I got accepted at Harvard, and I got accepted at the University of Minnesota, but I did not want to go to either one of them because I was somewhat scared in a way that I did not know anyone, and the government, when they sent me, they insisted that I should go to Harvard because not too many students got accepted there. But I knew an individual who was going to the University of Kansas, and I knew that individual will help me out in terms of finding me a place to live and to get me oriented and to get me even give me advice in what courses I should take and what courses should I avoid at the beginning until I feel my way around. And it was a very helpful, actually, to me. That individual provided me with a lot of very valuable advice, not only in terms of the schooling, but in terms of my social life, and get adjusted. And it didn't take me very long to actually get adjusted. And the first semester at school, I was doing very well, like the top on my class in almost every single year. Even when I went to college 2 months late in the middle of that year, the first year when I took exam with the rest of the students, I scored second highest to one single individual who was extremely smart, and he was very fluent in English language. Very, very fluent. He used to work with British Petroleum Company in Iraq. He was somewhat older than the rest of the students, but he was very well entrenched and grounded in the English language, in the spoken language, as well as in the written language. But by the end of the second year, I was there at school. I came at par with him, and both he and I, he finished. He was ahead of me, and he finished. He got his BA in biological sciences. So I did, and so did I, and we both were honor students, and our honor courses were biochemistry. Biochemistry was not available to the regular students. They were only the honor students, like the top students on the dean list. We were able to take biochemistry. But anyhow, he and I got accepted to come to the United States. He went to Duke University and got a PhD in biological sciences. I believe he specialized in invertebrate zoology, physiology of invertebrates, and parasitology. And I went to the University of Kansas and finished in a year and a half. Completed my BA and my master's degree, and applied to several different schools. I applied to Cornell, and I applied to Harvard, and I applied to the University of Michigan. And I got accepted in both Harvard and Cornell, and I was going to go to Cornell to study with a guy who got the Nobel Prize for discovering the molecular structure of the RNA. He had not gotten his Nobel Prize at the time, but he later on he got it. And I was actually, when I left the University of Kansas, I was going to go to Cornell. But the day I was leaving the campus of the University of Kansas, I went to my cubicle, and I found a letter from the University of Michigan, and the chairman of the department, which I applied to, apologized all over the place, and he did not respond to my application to graduate school. He said he makes his own decision and who to accept in his department at the doctoral level. He does not allow the dean of the, that's an agreement between him and the dean of the graduate school. He accepts his own students. So he, based on the recommendation which I had from my professors at the University of Kansas, he wrote me a letter. He said, "You are welcome to join me as a doctoral student, but unfortunately I will not be able to offer you a scholarship, but I could offer you some kind of assistance." Well, I had a scholarship from the Iraqi government. I did not actually need any support from anyone. So I decided on my way to Cornell, I decided to stop in Ann Arbor because I had a friend. I used to correspond with him when I was in Kansas. He was working on a PhD in archaeology, and I wanted to see him. And so I stopped in Ann Arbor, and he and his American wife hosted me. And I said, well, I'm going to then, they really wanted me, they influenced me to stay at the university. my friend and his American wife. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. I will go and eat with this individual. And he was extremely well known and was very nice to me. And he told me that he was writing a book, and he would want me to assist him in collecting material for his book, and he will put me on a grant or on the grant which he got to write the book. So I got actually sort of similar stipend to the people who had scholarships. And so I stayed at the University of Michigan and got my doctorate with distinction. And I got an offer from Columbia University right after I finished. I wrote my doctoral thesis on a very unusual bone that is acellular bone, and I studied the embryogenesis of that bone and when it becomes acellular and so forth. So the dean of the medical and dental school at Columbia University actually came to the University of Michigan to meet me, and your grandmother was going to school at the time. So when he met me, he offered me a postdoc fellowship to go to Columbia. Well, while we were making our minds whether your grandmother should quit school and go with me, or should I wait until she finishes, or whatever, I got a phone call from a professor at the medical school, was the chief of nuclear medicine, and he was looking for someone to train people in finding a radioactive compound to detect bony tumors of the skeletal system using radioactive fluorine, or what we call fluorine-18.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did not really know much about that. I knew a lot about bone and bone structure and bone growth and so forth, but I did not know a great deal about the application of radioactive material. I knew a little bit about the application of radioactive material in the synthetic aspect of certain proteins and so forth, and we used to do what is called radioautography, and it's a very difficult and very time-consuming procedure, which I've used later on in my career, but tedious, difficult, and so forth. So I knew a very little bit, some very basic stuff. So when he interviewed me, he said, I went deer hunting with your major professor, and I was asking him if you know any somebody who just got either doctoral student or somebody who just finished his doctorate to work with him. And my professor told him that he had one of the best students he ever had, and whatever. But he said I offered him to stay with us, and he did not want to stay with us. And the dean of the University of Columbia Medical and Dental School came over to see him, and I think he's dealing with him, but he's still in town, and get in touch with him and see. And so they got in touch with me, went for the interview, and they made me an offer, and it was actually in a way quite good, because your grandmother stayed and she was able to finish her schooling, and I started working at the University of Michigan Medical School as a researcher.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent me to Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, to learn about radiation biology and radiation effects and radiation genetics, because we discovered that the atomic reactor at the University of Michigan would not be able to make fluorine-18 for us. And if we were going to buy fluorine-18 from laboratories in Chicago, but fluorine-18 half-life is extremely short. It's about 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
So it will decay very quickly. And regardless how we attempted to have Abbott send it to us, they said the moment they get it out of their reactor, they will have somebody ready to deliver it to O'Hare. I do not know whether it was the name of the airport was O'Hare, or it was some another airport, and they and somebody will be waiting at the airport in Detroit. It was not actually Metropolitan Airport in Detroit. The airport was in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which was closer to the University of Michigan. And in spite of all that the fluorine-18 would have gone through at least 8 half-lives before we have received it. And so it would have been used, it would not have much of radioactivity. So there was an article, because of the fact it was nuclear medicine, and the nuclear medicine at the time was primarily concerned with the treatment of thyroid disease, identification of thyroid tumor, and be it malignant, like a thyroid cancer, or enlargement of the thyroid as goiter, or as just what we call hyperthyroidism, or Graves' disease, that hyperactivity of the thyroid gland. Radioactive iodine was the agent which was used to identify these different conditions in the thyroid gland, and also was used in the treatment of these conditions, especially thyroid cancer as well as thyroid toxicosis, and that is the hyperthyroidism. An individual produces too much thyroid hormone, and the individual will be very jittery. They don't sleep very well. They sweat. They lose weight, and they feel hyper energetic, or the other way around. The individual who have goiter, who have hypothyroidism, they produce very little thyroid hormone, so they are sluggish. They become obese or fat, and they do not metabolize very well, and so forth and so on. And more importantly, in this case, in the hypothyroidism, is a hypothyroid mother becomes pregnant, her fetus will also become hypothyroid in utero, and when the fetus is born as exposed to the hypothyroidism environment in the womb of the pregnant women, he will become cretin, and a cretin is a very unsavory term, that the individual is stupid. The individual does not comprehend, and so the cretinism was associated with idiocy, and so the hypothyroid mother should be treated to become euthyroid, normal thyroid, that's what scientifically we call euthyroid, to be able to deliver a normal, intelligently speaking, a normal child.
So,
these were the applications of radioactive iodine, but the field of nuclear medicine was in its infancy, and the professor I was working with was the head of the department. He was one of the pioneers of nuclear medicine in the United States. Go ahead. Now you were going to ask me a question.
Well, yes. So do you just abandon the project with the fluorine-18, and then you worked with the thyroid so that you could?
Well, they sent me to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, to learn about the radiation effects, and the radiation effects were the reason they sent me was due to the fact there was an article in one of the highly regarded medical science magazines. It still is one of the best magazines, called Lancet. Now there are many different Lancets, but it was only one single Lancet. At the time, there was a small article suggesting, not necessarily proving or advocating, but suggesting very strongly that individuals who were treated with radioactive iodine to treat thyroid cancer or thyroid hyperthyroidism, or what we call thyrotoxicosis or Graves' disease, have a greater incidence of developing leukemia. And so the federal government was very concerned about the use of radioactive iodine in the treatment of thyroid disease. If you want to wind up with leukemia in these individuals, which is practically worse than thyroid cancer, they wanted to make sure that this is the case or it isn't. So they got in touch with all the big institutions which were using radioactive iodine at the time, and there were only 12 of them. And they wanted these institutions to get together and study this phenomenon. Is it or isn't it true that there is a greater incidence of malignancy, especially hematologic malignancy, specifically leukemias, different types of leukemias, resulting from the exposure to radioactive iodine. So my boss, was the head of nuclear medicine, thought I was intelligent enough and capable enough to be assigned. So he made me the representative of his department to participate in the colloquium of the 12 different institutions were going to tackle that issue. But none of us were very well prepared, and especially me, because I really did not know a great deal about radiation effect. Lots of people knew from way back when the Curies knew. Madame Curie's husband was carrying a piece of rock which contained uranium, carrying in his pocket, and he did not know the effect of it. He had a huge burn on his thigh, resulting from exposure to radioactivity from that rock, and he finally also died of malignancy resulting from exposure to high amount of radiation. And so did Madame Curie, who also got exposed to a lot of radiation, because we did not know how to handle radiation and how to protect ourselves from radiation. So anyway, that's another story. Can be,
well, yeah, but it's really interesting.
It's very interesting, and it's very comprehensive. Also, I mean, I have to go through a lot of that, but nevertheless, we knew a lot about radiation at the time. So I was sent to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. They were the people who really were very much involved in the biological effect of radiation, especially following the development of the atomic bomb. They participated in that along with the Fermi laboratory in Chicago and other places. The Argonne laboratories in Illinois and many other radiation facilities in Nevada and Arizona and different places in developing the atomic bomb. But they wanted, and of course, we dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We realized the devastating biological effect of the radiation, not only in killing people immediately, but those who survived radiation, a significant number of them developed malignancies, and a very significant number of them, when they got the mother who got exposed to radiation, developed fetuses or delivered fetuses with multiple congenital anomalies that resulted from genetic change. And so the professor I worked with at the University of Michigan in genetics, he was actually, in a way, the father of, or among the very well-known people of radiation genetics, or the effect of radiation on DNA. We did not even, know the exact effects, but we began to realize that after the atomic bomb, and the professor I worked with at the University of Michigan, he went to Hiroshima and Nagasaki and studied many of those people. He was an MD, PhD individual, so he got a PhD in genetics, and he got an MD also. So he knew diseases as well as he knew the dramatic biological effect of radiation and what kind of diseases they lead to. So he recommended to my boss that I should go to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, because that is the place where they have the best scientists who know a great deal about the biological effect, especially on the DNA and the chromosomes that got exposed to radiation.
So did you ever work with any of the people who had developed things from the radiation exposure in Japan?
Not directly, no. My professor at the University of Michigan did, and he brought another individual who was a graduate of Columbia University. Happens to be Columbia University. He was a pediatrician, but he also became very much interested in genetics and the effect of radiation on the newborn. He was, from that point of view, he wanted to recognize the anomaly in either fetuses or newborn babies who got exposed to high level of radiation. Some of the exposure was lethal, that the mother either aborted the fetus or prevented her from actually even developing recognized fetus,
Oh, wow.
or fetuses that are aborted in 3 months or 6 months, or they were born with all kinds of anomalies that were not necessarily compatible with survival. So the field was in its infancy, and so all of us who worked in that field, we were more or less like pioneers in that field.
Because it hadn't been done before.
Exactly, especially at the chromosome and DNA level, because let me tell you, I graduated in 1963. The correct number of human chromosomes were not known until the year 1956, believe it or not.
Wow.
We have smashed the atom. We have dropped 2 atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we did not know the correct number of our chromosomes. And the reason primarily was for that is the technology. And so if we could not prepare human chromosome to even count them, how could we study them for radiation effects? We did not know how. So once we developed the technology and we began to apply the technology to study human chromosomes, and it did not actually become applicable until 1958, when the very first 1958 or 1959, when the very first syndrome, and that is Down's syndrome, Mongolism, was discovered by a French pediatrician by name Jerome Lejeune. Jerome Lejeune, when he was doing his residency in the late 1930s, he proposed to the people he was working with. He worked in France, and he worked in Switzerland, and he worked in Belgium, and he worked in Germany. Well, Germany at that time was not in very good shape because it was post Second World War. But he also in England, and to most of those places where he was at, he always advocated that Down syndrome was a genetic disease, or a disease resulting from some kind of genetic defect. And he was the guy who proved it, as a matter of fact. When we developed the technology, he was able to obtain tissue from a Down syndrome, a newborn, which he diagnosed, and he was able to culture the tissue from that baby, and he found that baby had additional chromosome. Instead of 46 chromosomes, this baby has 47 chromosomes.
Just having the extra chromosome.
And then we began also to look into the effect of radiation. So the people, when I went to Oak Ridge, they were actually doing 2 things. One is that they were calling upon the people who got exposed to atomic accidents while they were working on the atomic bombs. And they got exposed to heavy doses of radiation. And they were calling them back every single year to do different analyses on them. And when the chromosomal analysis became available in the late 1950s, early 1960s, they hired an individual who got his PhD from the University of Maryland, where there was a professor who studied the radiation effect on chromosomes in the plants. But it doesn't make any difference. Plant chromosomes are not that much different than animal chromosomes or human chromosomes. So the people at Oak Ridge hired him to come to Oak Ridge and begin to experiment, expose human and animal cells to radiation, as well as study the chromosomes of the individuals who were exposed to harmful effects of radiation during the 1940s. One of the things which were not obviously studied was their chromosomes. Do they still have the residual effects of radiation on their chromosomes after these years? They were exposed to these what we call radiation accidents in the mid-1940s to around the early 1940s to around 1946. Because when I went there, I even studied some of those individuals. And I believe there were 2 or 3 were exposed in 1945, and a few were exposed to harmful radiation doses in 1946. And we determined that they still had reproducible radiation effects and defects resulting from their exposure to radiation about 25 years earlier.
Wow.
So we began to understand how radiation also works. Radiation works in many different ways. It causes cell death immediately. It kills the cells or kills the individual. It causes mutations that are almost always harmful, which can lead to either tissue death, because the cells will be incapable of cell division, and hence the organ which get exposed to the radiation get involuted and become fibrous. And I'll tell you a story in a moment. Or they get a mutation that will lead to development of cancer, especially lymphomas and leukemias and other connective tissue cancers, carcinomas, as well as sarcomas. So we knew that radiation, exposure to harmful radiation, either kills at the whole individual level, at the cellular level, or it induces mutations that develop into cancer. And so we were monitoring these individuals who got exposed to radiation. And every single year we asked about, because they began before I went to Oak Ridge in 1964. These individuals used to come, and they were, I don't know, they were following, let's assume that they were following 3 or 4 dozens of these individuals. Every subsequent year, 2 or 3 of these individuals will die. And when we asked at the time when I was there, what did they die of? They died of cancer, primarily leukemia or lymphoma, and very likely due to the exposure of radiation. But let me go back to how did we know that radiation effect causes involution of the organ, and the organ whittle down and become a lot smaller, and it becomes almost functional. Well, when we began to treat people who have thyroid cancer, and the radiation kills because it get concentrated, iodine get concentrated in the thyroid because it is essential organified iodine. In other words, iodine get conjugated to a protein, which is called thyroglobulin. And iodinated thyroglobulin is the thyroid hormone. The first step, what we call is T1. That is the first step is one single ring of thyroglobulin, or two rings, which we call T2, or three rings, T3, or thyroxine,
T4.
thyroid hormone, that's T4. There's four rings attached to each other, and on each one of these rings there is an iodine molecule. Now, when you use radioactive iodine, and if the individual is deficient in iodine, and most of the Midwest is deficient in iodine, and that is why they have introduced in the early 1920s iodinated salt, and that's when you go to the store. I'm sure you've seen salt which has the word in yellow, iodized salt.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it?
Yes.
Right? Okay. That means iodine was added to the salt to prevent iodine deficiency, which lead to goiter, which is a deficiency of thyroid hormone, and the individual becomes sluggish, fat, develops myxedema, and if they get pregnant, they have a cretin child, and so forth and so on. Their hair begin to fall. They become dull, even if they were intelligent. They would not be as sharp because they lack energy. Thyroid hormone is the thing which provides actually the energy that the adherence, all the part of the cell cycle, the phosphorylation takes place in using the thyroid hormone. Krebs, I don't know if you learned the Krebs cycle.
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
We're running out of time, Jidou.
Okay.
Okay, but I really appreciate the time that you've taken, and it's really interesting to hear all of the different things. And I mean, just trying to get, from this thyroid to the research that you've done. It's really great. So. Okay,
well, anyway, that's the different step that I've gone through from being, a student of basic biology, but very much interested in biomedical sciences, to where I am now, and
And can you elaborate on where you are now, just so?
I became very much interested as a result of my work at the University of Michigan. I became interested in the cellular genetic basis of malignancy. What kind of changes at the cellular level that leads to malignancy? And I became convinced from way back when I used to teach medical students or teach residents who rotated with me, or in my lectures and so forth. I always said cancer is a disease of the DNA. And people will ask me, well, how do you know it's a disease of the DNA? I said, because a malignant cell does not produce a normal cell. It produces a malignant cell, and hence it needs to convey the change which occurred in it to the cell is when it reproduce, or it's when it divides, it's going to produce two cells, and that new cell is going to contain the same abnormality which want to make it a cancer cell. And so I became very much interested in cancer genetics and cytogenetics, and continued to do that while I was at the University of Michigan. I published quite a bit on the radiation effects and the production of thyroid cancer, as well as other types of cancers and leukemias and the kind of chromosomal abnormalities which are associated with the development of cancer. And then when I went to Beaumont, I did some of this work for a short time, and then I began to do work on the genetic changes in brain tumors, and we found more or less similar kind of genetic changes in the brain tumors and many other tumors. They published in different areas, but primarily in cancer genetics.
Of course. Okay, and were you?
And I continue to do that now with my current job. The only thing we do is we do testing on the genetic mutations and genetic abnormalities in hematologic malignancies.
And where you were teaching, was that at Beaumont specifically?
Well, I was teaching at the University of Michigan when I became associate professor there. Then I came to Beaumont, and Beaumont is a teaching hospital. But also I had affiliation. I was a director of a school of what I called it anatomic science, school of anatomic science. Instead of medical technology, it was a school of anatomic sciences. And the people who got their degree from, they went to school at Auckland University or Wayne State University or Michigan State University. We did not take very many students from the University of Michigan. They primarily became either electron microscopists or cytogeneticists, that because of me, because I was the director of the school, or histotechnologists.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I used to teach them a whole course in cytogenetics, but I always taught the pathology resident, the pediatric residents, and the obstetric gynecology residents. And also before I left Beaumont, people from radiation and medical oncology rotated in my department.
Wow. So it really came together in your field.
Yeah. And I loved it. And I love it. I really would not do anything else. I just absolutely love what I do, and that's why I do not want to retire. I mean, I just absolutely love what I do, and I do not even consider it a job.
Well, you'll keep doing what you're doing, and it's great if it makes you happy. So, also you're furthering the knowledge that other people have and teaching others. So, thank you very much for your time, Jidou.
My pleasure. Anytime.
I really appreciate it.
I hope that's helpful, and at least having who I am, because we never talked about that, and what I am, and if it helps your classmates in some way, the better for it.
I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Okay. Bye.